Hello, fellow human light beings. This is Mahadeva, the Thunder Wizard. Welcome back to the Thunder Wizard YouTube channel. In order to understand a lot of the things that I am teaching, that I am discovering, that I am sharing with you, it's helpful to go back and understand our assumptions about ourselves, about our multiverse, about our relationship to consciousness, to physical matter. So you cannot escape the matrix until you know the true history of humans in 3D Earth. So I'm going to be sharing that with you. I'm going to be giving you an abbreviated version of the history of the human soul in related to planet Earth. So make sure that you stay tuned, because I do have a list of things I'm going to go through, so I won't just be babbling on and on. But as I'm sharing more and more stuff online, there's a lot of my viral videos, the short videos, are starting to go viral on my Facebook. In case you don't know, the Facebook account I'm talking about is The Path of the Thunder Wizard. So if you want to go subscribe to that, feel free. My goal with that is to get people over here to the YouTube channel so that they can get more in-depth information. And what I'm running into, of course, with the comments on there, which of course the majority of it are trolls, but it is a good indication of the mindset of the average person. And the average person has been completely, totally misinformed about who they are, about the nature of human beings, and about human beings' relationship to planet Earth, as well as to everything outside of Earth. And so we're going to be changing that. Now, this is coming from direct personal experience that I have had in other dimensions ever since I started working with higher dimensional beings about 1.5 years ago. Now, a lot of these things that I'm discovering are things that I intuited, I taught. I didn't teach it because I'd experienced it. It just was either alternative spiritual understandings that came from older religious traditions before the monotheist traditions, like Taoism, Hinduism, Vedic, shamanism, pre-Christian European polytheism. Those beliefs tend to vibrate with the truth of what's really going on. But even with things like Hinduism and Taoism, they talk about these truths in a very cryptic, symbolic, poetic way. But for the first time in history for humans, we're actually getting the truth, and it's very direct, without any of the religious philosophy or the symbolism or any of that stuff. And now we get to interact with the multiverse from a practical, real perspective, really from the perspective of physics. It's a real thing, it's a science. So I'm going to be sharing with you my personal experience, as well as things I'm being taught, things I've been shown by the higher dimensional beings. And if you're able to accept some of these assumptions, which are going to be completely opposite from what you have been taught, you will have a much easier time navigating this shift. So the biggest thing that I'm running into, which of course is not surprising to me at all, is the fear. People are filled with fear. To give you an example, I uploaded a viral video that says something to the effect of, if you do this, you'll always be protected. And in that video, it's a very short video, in that video I say, if you operate from the understanding that you are God, then nothing can touch you. However, if you're operating from fear, from anger, from aggressive violence, competitiveness, then you no longer are God. And then you're open to all kinds of unpleasant experiences. And the interesting thing is, rationally speaking, people would want to go, oh, I'm God. Oh, I like that idea. I'm all powerful. I'm connected to everything. So if I have connection to all of that, then I don't need to be afraid. I don't need to lie. I don't need to steal. I don't need to be aggressive. I don't need to judge, because I have everything, right? That's the logical perspective. And what's interesting is the people who are the most religious, who claim to be connected to the Almighty, who claim to be saved, who claim and believe that they're connected to all of that, they are the most insecure. And those are the first people. Number one, what I find interesting is those people are clicking on a video that says, if you do this, you'll always be protected. Well, if you're so confident in your religion, why are you clicking on videos about how to be protected? I wouldn't. If I felt completely comfortable and protected, I wouldn't be looking for videos like that. So the interesting thing is people, of course, you can understand it, because monotheism is based on you not being God. Monotheism is based on you being this tiny, created, pretty much worthless being, that if God doesn't accept you, you have no worth. So they spend all their time trying to please God, getting God's love, getting God's salvation, because it starts from the assumption that they don't have that. And that's not hyperbole coming from me. That's not even judgment. I was a born-again Christian minister when I was a young adult. And we would walk around with these, knocking on people's doors, we would walk around with these little booklets called the 4 Spiritual Laws. And the first one is, you are separate from God. That's the first thing that they tell you. They lay this assumption that you are separate from God. And so starting from that, you start from a place of fear. The whole point of believing in Jesus is perfect salesmanship. The way, I used to be in sales as well throughout my young adulthood. And the way you sell a product is you first point out what is lacking, what you're missing, what you need, what the problem is. And then you solve the problem with your product. That's how you sell a product. So this is how religion is sold. It is sold to you by first telling you that you're separate from God, that God is angry with you simply because you were born, that if you don't join the proper club, and if you don't have the proper belief, you will burn in hell forever. And don't worry, there's nothing you can do to save yourself. You're screwed. But here's the product. There's this guy named Jesus, and he's going to save you. Oh, thank you. Now I'm going to be okay. So whenever you hear Christians talk about how, they worship the Almighty God, they're not doing it out of anything other than fear. Because without fear, there would be no reason for that religion. That's why the devil is so prominently displayed in that religion. And even though, again, monotheists will say that God is almighty, they treat the devil like it's this head-to-head battle, that they're two equals fighting for supremacy. And if you're not careful, this equally powerful evil being will deceive you and take you away from God. So it comes from fear. There's nothing about that religion that doesn't operate from the assumption, the base assumption of fear and insecurity. So it's not a surprise to me, but I do find it very interesting that the people who are most uncomfortable with me saying, as long as you operate from the understanding that you are God, which means you don't need to fight, you don't need to steal, you don't need to judge, you don't need to worry, as long as you know that you are that and you operate from that, you are completely protected. Because the universe sees you as God. You act like God, the universe sees you that way. And also the universe sees you that way because that's the way you are. The only reason that life treats you poorly is that you forget who you are and you act as though you're not who you are. You act from fear, insecurity, and all those other things. And when you do that, the universe goes, wait a minute, I thought God was here. There's this strange thing that's, flipping out and acting strangely. Well, we're not going to support that. And then you're alone, and then you're poor, and then you're sick, and then you're miserable, and all of that. So you really have to be willing to completely flip everything on its head, because that's what you've been given. You've been given a completely false understanding of reality. So if you have an accurate understanding of reality, as this 5D shift comes, this ascension shift, which is in the process of happening to us, it will be just a natural evolution for you. And that's what it was originally meant to be, and I'll get into that. So before we get into this list, which again, just stay patient and I will get through all of that. If you're new to the channel, here's what I need you to do. I need you to subscribe, like, and comment. This channel has been under shadow banning for a long time, which means that YouTube screws with the algorithm by deleting subscribers, deleting views, and even deleting videos that it doesn't like. So I need you to keep the algorithm on our side so more and more people can see the channel. So I need you to subscribe, like, and comment. If you need to, resubscribe. Go to the free playlist page. This is if you're new to the channel and you want to actually get practical tools. I sit around and I talk blah, 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 but the truth is that it's in just doing basic, simple, very simple actions that you can shift your frequency. And that is what the next 3 playlists are. So you go to the free playlist page, it won't cost you a dime, on the Thunder Wizard YouTube page. Click on the playlist Maoshan Qigong. Interdimensional meditation is the next one, and the third one is 12 steps to 5D. Do one thing from at least one of those playlists every day. If you can do more than one, so much the better. If you really want to get to the high level stuff, then don't wait around. Just go right to the thunderwizard.com the thunderwizard.com website and subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. Please forgive me, it is raining outside. People in the United States think that I'm recording from my bathroom because you can hear that. It sounds like the shower's on. But here in Australia, people's roofs are mostly made of metal. So when it rains, it sounds like you're in a bathroom with the shower on, but that's not the case. Anyway, it doesn't look like it's, I don't know, it may rain hard, we'll see. So, what are we talking about? You can't escape the matrix until you know the true history of humans in 3D Earth. And let's just get into it. This is such a deep subject, but I'm going to try and make it as simple as possible today so I won't take up too much of your time. So, first thing I need you to contemplate is that you were never created. You are eternal God. That goes completely against your experience of the third dimension. So it's understandable if you don't believe that, if you don't understand it, if you don't like it. And the reason why, again, on paper, everybody wants to be God. Why wouldn't you want to be God? Well, in the third dimension, your life is connected to functioning within this frequency. And in this frequency, in order to interact with the third dimension, you are hypnotized by the third dimension itself into believing that you are this limited being that is isolated. Somebody walks by, you can't tell what they're thinking and feeling. You feel isolated. You look out into the sky, you don't see anything except for empty space and stars. And there's, as far as we know, that this is the only planet that has life on it. We haven't found anything that has life. So there's this empty, cold universe out there. That's your physical experience. So your physical experience is telling you in order to survive, you have to believe certain things. You have to believe you're limited, you have to be afraid, and you have to, kill or be killed, survival of the fittest. And so your survival instinct is going to really push back when I tell you something that's completely opposite to that, which is you were never created. You are eternal God. So religion wants to tell you you've been created by a God. In fact, one of the things they get upset about when I say, you are God, and when you act like God, the universe completely surrounds and protects you. People say, you're not God, you're created. God created you. And, by saying that you're God, you're going to go to hell. Just, it's a really horrible way to live when you think about it. And I'm not judging because I used to be one. It's a really horrible interaction with our universe, and not to mention ourselves. So you were never created. You are eternal God. So sit with that. One of my first memories I had, which I thought everybody experienced this. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I remember telling this to my now ex-wife years ago. But one of my first memories, I remember being 4 years old, and I was standing in the driveway of our house, and I was looking down the driveway, and I was just staring off in the distance because this thought came to me, more of a realization that was, I'm never going to die. It's not possible. I am existence. And I wasn't thinking about my physical body. I was only 4 years old. I wasn't really thinking about that. Just the idea that my consciousness could go away, I realized that's impossible. I've always been alive. I always will be alive. In some form or other, I will always be self-aware. I will always be conscious. And I remember telling that to my now ex-wife, and I said, yeah, that was one of my first memories. And she said, that's not normal. I said, what do you mean? She said, most people don't think like that. So maybe that was unusual, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But it was definitely one of the truest things that I thought, because of course as I grew up and I went to church and went to school and studied science and everything, I was told the exact opposite. No, you were created, you didn't exist before you were born, you don't have any power, you're going to die, and you're either going to go to heaven or hell, but all these other forces outside of you control it. There's this God that controls everything, and there's a devil, and then you have this limited earth where you have death and all of that. And so I bought into, of course, everything I was trained to believe, and I forgot that one truth. But later now, as I'm now, of course, on the other end of my life, and I'm working directly with higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings, they are telling me that same thing that I knew when I was 4 years old. I've always existed. I've always been a conscious being, and I always will be a conscious being. They've taken it a step further, which is that nobody's created you. There wasn't a point in time where you didn't exist. You've always existed. And this is one manifestation of your consciousness that you've chosen to experience. And there are other experiences that you have had and others that you will have. But you are God, and you did create this world, and so are you if you're watching. You created this world, you created everything in it. And if you accept that, it makes things a whole lot easier when you start to come out of the third dimension, because the third dimension wants to keep you trapped in the illusion of being limited and isolated and powerless. Those are illusions. It's not real. This is a virtual reality, a 3D virtual reality video game for the soul. And just like a virtual reality, if you believe what you see, you will be believing an illusion. And so this body, instead of us putting on 3D glasses, virtual reality goggles with headphones, instead of doing that, we climbed inside of a human body, which has this brain, which is the hardware, and then the intellect, which is the software, and then we have all of these things that we use to interact with our three-dimensional matrix. We have our eyes, we have our fingers, we have our, all our ears, nose, mouth, and all of that. Those are just simply, again, software that the hardware uses, our nervous system, in order to interact and function with the third dimension. Once we take those goggles off, we're no longer in virtual reality. Once we escape this body, we're no longer in this virtual reality. So as real as this seems, it's not. It's an illusion. So let's see, where was I? We are way back here. You were never created, you are eternal God. You chose to create different dimensions to experience reality. So in one of my most recent excursions, I was taken to what we would call God, the one true God. The truth is actually the religion that has the closest understanding to how God functions in this world that I've seen in this particular instance is the Yoruba religion of West Africa. And they have the supreme deity, but the supreme deity didn't create anything. And you don't really interact with the supreme deity. You interact with the deity just below that, which is the creator God. But the supreme deity is where all of consciousness comes from, and then everything is some fractal expression of the supreme deity. So I was taken to this supreme deity. You can call it God if you want. I use the, nowadays everybody has to, it's strange to me. I'm running into people who will say, my name is so-and-so and my pronouns are. I'm like, what? So if you want to determine a pronoun for God, you can. I use he just because it's easier for me. So I was brought before this light. That's all that God was this huge, bright light. And and the light invited me in, said, you come on in. So I came into the light, and as I was in the light, I adjusted my perception, and I became aware of something other people have said who have had near-death experiences, which is that the light that you see as one God is actually made up of every single conscious soul in the multiverse. So that means that's where you are. You think you're sitting there or lying there, you think you're watching this on your computer or your phone or your tablet. You think that's where you are, but you're not. Where you actually are is in that light with all of the other conscious beings in the universe. And if you want to imagine all of these tiny little bits of infinite light inside this larger light that contains everything, if you can imagine that there's some of them that have virtual reality goggles on, and they think they're having an experience on Earth. That's you. So I went in there and I experienced all of that, and God said, I am experiencing reality in infinite numbers of souls and infinite numbers of timelines and infinite numbers of dimensions and worlds. And then he said, and you are one of them. And then he said, and actually you're me. You just don't know it. You're God. You just don't know it. And so, you can play around with that, believe it, accept it or not. So you're not wrong. If you think that you're this tiny little being that's separate from everything, that's not untrue, because that is, as the light hits the screen and then the little image appears on the screen, that's what you are. Your physical body, your identity is that image on the third dimensional screen. That light is coming and hitting it. So you can either identify with the limited projection on the screen, which is what 3D is designed to make you focus on, or you can decide to identify with the light that is projecting you on the screen. Now, if you go into that light and you keep following it and following it and following it, you're going to make your way back to that light where all of the souls are. So interesting, as I'm saying this, I'm being reminded of the people who say, don't go into the light. Interesting that they use that exact phrasing, because what happens if you go into the stream of light? You will continue to go up through the light. But what they tell you is if you go into the light, you will be reincarnated. When actually the exact opposite is true. If you don't go into the light, you will be reincarnated. Because by not going into the light, you are choosing to be an individual and you are choosing to be limited. So you have to manifest in some physical reality. And the Tibetan Book of the Dead is very clear about this. It says the moment that you die, and this is what people say when they have near-death experiences, almost 100% of the time, the moment that you die, your soul comes out of your body and this light appears. And according to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, if you fearlessly, without a second thought, go into the light, you won't reincarnate. But if there's a hesitation and you have fear, then you get pulled, like gravity. It's sort of like you're there and you get pulled into some other lower dimensional state based on your consciousness. I tend to believe that it's more conscious than that. I don't think it's that, that you have that little control over it. I think you have complete control over it if you choose to. So, it's just so backwards. People who say don't go into the light, you'll get reincarnated, they end up creating the exact thing that they're afraid of. So, and as I said before, the only beings that run away from the light are cockroaches. So unless you want to be a cockroach, you should go into the light. Don't run from the light. Unless what you want to do is eat, garbage and refuse and live under people's houses and climb in through their sewer pipes. Unless you want to do that, then go ahead, run from the light, be a cockroach. Anyway, we'll keep going. You chose to create different dimensions to experience reality. You are currently experiencing multiple dimensions right now. And it's very hard to experience those dimensions and stay in the third dimension. So you're here because there's a part of you that wants to be here. And the most powerful part, your soul wants to be here because there's something for you to experience. And the main thing that you're here to experience is how to create, how to manifest reality from your intentions. And in the third dimension, the way that happens is you overcome your fears and you overcome your resentments, you overcome your selfishness, you overcome all of your limitations, all of your, quote, sins. You choose to overcome those. And of course, that can only be done through some kind of spiritual practice. Even if, even Christians, if their motivation is to evolve and they, want to forgive everybody and love everybody and go beyond their limitations, they will. It doesn't matter what spiritual practice you use. I just went bad-mouthing Christianity, but that's because there's so much negativity in it that people can buy into. But there's enough good in it that if you focus on that and forget about all the other stuff, you can evolve. And what will happen is, because you've chosen to come here, you've chosen to limit yourself, you will experience how to, you'll either experience how to learn how to manifest reality, or you will completely buy into the illusion and you'll get angry, frightened, resentful, fearful, confused, insecure, and codependent, and then you will be completely lost in the illusion and you won't accomplish anything, which means that when you leave this physical realm, you'll go, damn it, I went down there. It's like when this happens to me all the time. I'm working on something. Sometimes I'll be in my bedroom, lying there working on my computer, and then I get up to go to the kitchen to get something because I'm thinking. I get to the kitchen, I go, what did I come in here for? And that's what happens to people when they get wrapped up in the illusion and you don't remember why you came here. Why do you think people self-delete? They basically walked into the kitchen and forgot what they came into the kitchen for. And when you don't know why you're here and you don't have something to work towards, you don't have a future. And the best definition of depression that I've ever heard came from somebody who said, depression is the inability to imagine a future for oneself. Really not having any hope about who you are, where you're going, and what you're doing. So as long as you are focused on your soul, you will always have a goal. You will always have something to work towards, even if that's just to enjoy your life. I'm now very involved in what the light beings have shown me my destiny and my purposes in this coming shift. So I'm working very hard at doing that. But outside of that, the only reason I'm here is just to surf and enjoy the beach. And the moment that my physical body can't go out there and surf, take me out. I'm done. That's the only reason that I'm here on the physical level. So you chose to create different dimensions to experience reality. There's a level of you on all the way up to that highest level, which is the God itself. You are that. You are God. And the infinity that being has, you have. And to the extent that you are connected to your soul, you have access to that infinity. You're going to find out what you really want. People will say, and the Christians will say this, if I were God, I could control everything. Yeah, but the thing is, you don't want to do that. That's not fun for you. And so being God in the third dimension doesn't mean having complete control over all souls. That's not fun. There's no fun in that. I don't want to get involved in what somebody else's nonsense is. It's none of my business. I want to enjoy my life. But you will have access. If that was really truly what I wanted, which was to be involved in everybody's life, to be what we think God is, which is this giant controlling pain in the ass, psychopathic, blowhard that just can't get his mind out of your business. If that's really what your soul wanted, you could become that. But the truth is, once you get connected to your soul, you stop wanting that kind of insecure, needing to control everything nonsense. So you chose to create different dimensions to experience reality. All conscious beings outside of the third dimension are aware of their infinite nature. All right, this is extremely important. This is extremely important. Bookmark this part of the video. So what you don't know is that every other physical being out there that has achieved the level of spiritual awakening that humans are about to achieve, every conscious being in the multiverse is aware of all other conscious beings, is aware of this universal, divine, quantum field of awareness, if you want to call it God, that connects everything and everyone. Now that is completely opposite from what your experience is. There's a reason why people believe in the lie. By the way, it's a lie. It's a psyop. The lie that the deep state elite wants you to believe, that there are these gray aliens from Zeta Reticuli who are coming here and abducting humans because they're curious and they want to, that lie works because your experience in the third dimension is you don't understand anything outside of your own internal reality. So you project onto your experience of this cold, empty universe And so you just assume that if some being from another planet comes to Earth, they're going to do what we would do if we ran into some strange animal we'd never seen before. We would capture it, we would take it into a laboratory, we would take samples of it, we would slice it up, we would hook it up with electrodes, and that's, when you hear about alien abductions, the strange thing is like, my God, they're so human-like. That's what humans do. It's obviously a projection. And when we're doing that, when we take these strange animals we've never seen and we chop them up in a lab, we're acting sociopathically. We have no empathy for them. We don't connect to them. They're just these objects that we want to study. So in our fear and our third dimensional projection, we assume that if there were other beings out there, that's what they would do, because that's what we would do. But what we don't realize is that we are in a very isolated laboratory called the third dimension. It's actually a realm that is like being inside of a mirrored fishbowl. You try to look out, and all that happens is you see inside it. You can't see anything outside of it. So we're isolated and trapped in that. And that is something that only happens here on this earthly dimension. The moment that you go outside of three-dimensional Earth, the moment that you're outside of that, you enter into a space that is filled with love. And you immediately feel and connect to all conscious beings. So in that environment, you fly around and you go to a planet you've never been to, and you find other intelligent life there. They aren't going to be strange beings that are like, who are you? What? They're going to go, hey, look at that. It's another conscious being. They're not going to care that you're a primate. These things on our ears, come because we used to be monkeys. They don't serve any purpose, but they're just leftovers from being monkeys. They're not going to look at us and go, oh, look at those monkey things over there. They're going to see your soul. You will feel their soul. They will feel your soul. Whether they'll be excited to go, oh gosh, tell us about your world. And oh, what is your species? What's it like in that monkey body of yours? Oh, well, I'm in this insect body, or believe it or not, there are cat beings. There are people, 2 legs, 2 arms, but they're basically cats. There's all kinds of different creatures out there. But when you run into them, that doesn't matter to you any more than if you run into somebody and they have blue eyes or green eyes or brown eyes. You don't go, wait a minute, what color are those eyes? What's it like? Do you have feelings? You have different, you don't do that. You see them as a person. They're slightly different from you. That's what it's like for them. You're a different species. It's a big deal. You're slightly different, but what's important is that you are a soul, and they see it and they feel it. And outside of this third dimensional Earth, you can feel other people's feelings, and they can feel yours. Now that is not something you want here in the third dimension, because we are at a lower frequency. And at this frequency, what ends up happening is that if somebody's filled with hatred, you don't want to feel that. If somebody's filled with anger, you don't want to feel that. If somebody's filled with judgment towards you, it's not safe to feel all those things. So in the third dimension, we need to be in our little, isolated, self-contained experience, because it wouldn't be safe or fun otherwise. But that's only because we're at a frequency that allows for those negative emotions to exist. Once you get outside of the third dimension and you rise up above that, the frequency is such that those feelings they don't exist. In fact, those feelings themselves pull you out of higher dimensions. So it doesn't even enter the mind of any other being out there to do anything to you hurtful in any way. Because if they hurt you, they would immediately get themselves hurt. Like if they poke you with a pin, they'd go, ow, it would hurt them. So, and no healthy, sane being likes to cause itself harm. So to cause you harm would cause them harm. that is completely different from your three-dimensional experience. So you have to be willing to let go of that understanding. That only happens here. Once you get out of here, none of that exists. So all conscious beings outside of the third dimension are aware of their infinite nature. 3D Earth was created as a laboratory of conscious expansion. So this is a laboratory. It's a school. It's a classroom. It's just like when you're in college, and you're going to spend 4 years busting your ass. Pretty much all of your life is going to be spent with your nose in a book, learning something, and you're gonna be there for at least 4 years until you get a degree, maybe even longer. If you're gonna get a PhD, you're gonna be there a long time. So that going into it. That you're giving up your freedom and all your time is going to be spent in that. And you only have a little bit of free time when you're not doing that. So when souls come here, they know that the vast majority of their time is going to be spent in this laboratory, learning to overcome challenges. And just like a video game, a normal video game, when you're going up against the boss or the bad guy or whatever it is, and there's a real danger you could lose your man. But it's not a big deal to you because it's not real. You're just out there playing a game. If your man dies, you don't die. The game is over, but you're not dead. But what would happen if you forgot that and you became so involved in the video game that you thought that your guy was really you? Then all of those challenges would be so much more intense. And that's what three-dimensional life is. And I'm not minimizing any of your pain or your sorrow. But from the perspective of the soul, they're minor. Because the moment the game ends, you go, oh yeah, you know what I should have done? I should have faked left and gone right and then climbed the ladder and, dropped the bomb down the chute or whatever it is. And so that's what happens when we end up facing these very difficult challenges and we don't overcome them. When we leave our body, we go, what I should have done was, okay, I'm going to go back in, give me another quarter. So you say, why would I choose to come here? Well, the moment that you're able to go beyond believing that your challenges really are as big as they are, because what's happened is that you've expanded them. Like when you expand on your phone, you've expanded the issue so much in that experience because you believe this is real. It's very painful and very overwhelming. But if you're able to have a connection to a spiritual dimension, then that shrinks it down and the challenges aren't enough to destroy you. And you're able to overcome them. You're able to see around them. You're able to have patience with yourself. And then life becomes fun. And that's the goal. The goal is to get into this intense school, this intense laboratory, and get enough spirituality into you that it shrinks down and then it becomes a fun challenge to overcome. Like a sport. I mean, I go surfing and it's possible, when the waves are big enough, I mean, you might not, there have been times when I thought, I wasn't going to survive. And I did, and I made it back in, and I was so happy, and I couldn't wait to go back out there again. That's how life can be for you. If you get out of your own narcissism and you tap into spirituality, you understand this is a game. This is a laboratory. It's intense and it's real, but it's nothing more than that. Only the strongest and bravest of souls were invited to 3D Earth. So based on what I just said, there are the majority of the souls out there, which include extraterrestrials, light beings, gods, spirits, angels, even beings that we would experience as being much more powerful and enlightened than we are. And that's simply because they're in a higher vibration, a higher frequency. So they literally are higher than we are. But if you were to sit them down and say, wow, it's so great, I wish I was you, you don't have to deal with this, they would say, no, you don't understand. I'm not there because I don't have the strength to do it. I wouldn't dare go into that 3D video game school. I'm not ready for that. You're the crazy powerful one. And you would say, but I make so many mistakes. I'm so screwed up. And they would say, yeah, but I wouldn't survive 10 seconds in there. And you've been alive how many years, how many decades? They look at you as, it's like the Olympics. We watch the Olympics because only the elite of sportsmen go into Olympics. If you get the average person, the average jogger, and throw them into, an Olympic marathon, they're not gonna, they're not gonna get anywhere. That's these light beings, many of them, not all of them, of course, but many of them would say, I couldn't do what you're doing. You're far more powerful than I am. So only the bravest and the strongest come here. And it's sad when we forget that. But that's the whole point of the third dimension is to hypnotize you into believing you're this tiny little weak something or other. And the whole point is to overcome that so that you can get your power and learn how to master this reality. Because once you master this reality and you leave, once you get into that other realm, you're going to be on top of all of it. You're going to be the leader of all of the, you're going to be the superhero. You're going to be, there are councils out there. I've run into them and talked to them and apparently been invited to be on a few of them. And same thing could happen for you once you do CE5 and interdimensional meditation. But, the beings that survive here and overcome here, when you leave, you end up being put in a very powerful position. You run entire universes. You might be involved in, timelines and, making decisions for the evolution of planets and beings and life forces and all of that. That's why people come here. Souls choose to come here because they're ready to take more responsibility out there in the cosmos. Okay, so only the strongest and bravest of souls were invited to come to Earth. 3D Earth was always meant to be a temporary experiment. All right, so here's the things that I've learned recently, which I found extremely interesting. There was a group of very advanced souls who got together, and I was told I was one of them. You might be one of them as well. I don't know. But there was a group of advanced souls who got together, and they came up with this idea for the three-dimensional Earth because they saw the need for souls to gain even more knowledge and more power, and the only way to do that was in a very intense, concentrated environment. So the whole third-dimensional Earth was created by these light beings who got together and created it. If you look around Earth, it's not all the same. I mean, there are plants and animals here in Australia you can't find anywhere else. It's because, there were some people in that group that said, here's how I want, this part of the world to look. And somebody else went to, let's create Madagascar, and that has its own, animals you don't find anywhere else. It's not just this universal thing. There's all this difference in there. It's because there was a bunch of different minds in there creating this whole thing. And it was never meant to be eternal because it was an experiment. And the reason why it was an experiment is because there were factions within this group of light beings who wanted to make Earth easier. And then apparently I was one of them that said, we can't do that because then it's a waste of time. We won't learn anything. We have to make it real. We have to make the danger real. So we designed the three-dimensional frequency to be so engrossing and overwhelming that there had to be a real risk that you might lose yourself in it, that you might get pulled down by the negative lower vibrational tendencies. We built it in. That's why we have this animal mind. We have these animal instincts, because We're here to overcome those. But there's no point in overcoming something if there isn't any real risk of it pulling you down and taking you out. So that risk in and of itself, the souls are like, we don't know what the end result is going to be, if this is a good idea or a bad idea. But we have to put in the possibility that things might go really wrong. Otherwise, there's nothing to be gained. At least that was the way I felt about it. And as it turns out, unfortunately, the experiment, there was a lot of things that we learned, but the experiment ended up working against us because people became, the dark force elites became so pulled down into negativity. They created things like nuclear weapons. And nuclear weapons doesn't just affect the third dimension. When a nuclear bomb goes off, it rattles through all of the dimensions. So it's a danger to all of the other dimensions when, things that humans are doing. The level of psychopathy and hatred and evil that has been created within the third dimension has become a risk to the rest of the cosmos. So this Earth has come to an end. This experiment is over. Right now, if you remember in school, when the fire alarm goes off and you got a certain amount of time to get up out and follow, in line and go outside and go line up, that's what's happening right now. The fire alarm is going off. This is over. This has only been a drill. Please make it to your destination. That's what's happening right now. So this third dimension is coming to an end. This experiment is over. It's done. So that's why the light beings are working so hard to wake people up. That's why for the first time in human history, you can actually simply close your eyes, go up out of Earth's atmosphere and call for a light being, and they will come. And they won't pretend to be an angel like they did in times past. They won't pretend to be a spirit. They never really pretended. It's just that's how we saw them, because we were still wrapped up in the 3D illusion. But they show up, and when you call them, they're actually tearing down the illusion to get to you, which is why it can be so jarring to your 3D reality when they communicate to you, when you feel their energy and all that. They didn't do that in the past. They're doing it now. They did it, but they only did it sparingly with, prophets and visionaries and, avatars. They would show up in front of them. But for the average person, maybe, we'd hear about it. We'd hear other people's story about it. But the story that I'm sharing with you that's happened to me can happen to you. In fact, numerous people who are doing the interdimensional meditation that I teach, which you can find at the 90-day challenge, or as I've already told you in the free playlist, people who are doing that are having the same experience, that these beings are coming in and telling them, this is who you are. This is, the game is over. Wake up. It's time to wake up. Let's go. Here's who you really are. Here's what you're meant to do. This is coming to an end. They've never done that before. This is the first time in the history of Earth that this has ever happened. So 3D Earth was always meant to be a temporary experiment. Because of the risk of souls becoming trapped in 3D, Earth will shift. 3D reality is beginning to fracture. Light beings are awakening us. 3D Earth will fracture into at least 3 different frequencies. Now, this is my latest understanding about it, and I've tried to show you what that looks like. Oh, not there. Where is it? I've tried to show you what that looks like. So we're in the middle of that prism. The third dimensional light is hitting the prism, and it's beginning to fracture into the different colors. So right now, since we're still in the prism, we're still in one dimension, but everybody in that dimension is beginning to shift and move to their preferred frequency. This is why right now, more than ever, your thoughts are extremely important. What you think, what you focus on will determine which band of light you end up on. And my understanding at this point is that there's going to be at least 3. I don't know if there's more than that. Within those 3, there might be infinite probabilities. But piecing together what I've seen and what I've been told, early on, the ETs came to me and they were very insistent that I, in meditation, go and create my perfect reality, my perfect fantasy. So I would go and I created an entire world, and how it functioned, how people worked, what things were like, what they looked like, what it felt like, what the feelings were, what people were able to do, all kinds of details like that. Completely, totally fantastical, completely, totally impossible in the third dimension. But they kept on pushing me to say, no, create whatever makes you happy, regardless of whether it's possible or not. It's important that you do that. Go do that. So I did. Since then, at one point they came to me and they said, okay, your reality's been created. Ever since then, when I go there, I don't feel any power to create. I just kind of play around in what's already been made. So my frequency has already been set. So my thoughts go to that frequency. I want to align my thoughts to that. I want to align my behaviors with that, because that's where I want to go. Because right now, where your thoughts go is going to create a frequency for you. So if you're wrapped up in feeling negative, if you're feeling negative things, if you want to indulge in catastrophizing and being afraid and judging other people and hating yourself, you're creating a frequency you're gonna get pulled into. You can stop that, but you have to make the decision. And it helps if you accept that you're God, that you created this reality, you take full responsibility, and that you can create the reality of your dreams. You can't do that at the same time indulging in feeling like a victim and feeling confused and feeling angry and feeling like a tiny little created being. You can't do both at the same time, so you have to pick one. It's much easier if you just choose to accept that you're God and you can create everything, which means that you can drop all of the negativity if you choose to. You're going to have to work at it, but you can do it. So there's going to be at least 3 of those different frequencies once we get out the other side of that prison, which I would imagine, once the solar flash event is over, we'll be on the other side of that prison. Whether or not, one of the most recent things they've told me is that if I choose to, I can go to any one of those 3 frequencies, which leads me to believe that people who go to the highest frequency will be able to go to any of the other lower frequencies if they choose, but it won't, the other way around, it won't be as easy unless somebody really, really decides that they want out. One of the things I'm running into as I'm telling people about this is that people want to say, when I talk about, again, I'm not attached to this. I don't need any of this to be true. Maybe the solar flash will be an instantaneous thing. Maybe it'll take 1,000,000 years. I don't need it to be anything. I'm just telling you, what I've been told. But what I've found with a lot of people is when they hear me talk about it is that their response is, well, that's already happening. It's just taking longer. I don't think it's going to happen as quickly as you think. And what I hear in that is, I don't really want to make a drastic choice. I'm frightened at the idea of having to, be stuck somewhere and shift. And it's it's not easy for me to believe either. Trust me, it's not something I easily accept. The only reason I've chosen to accept it is because the overwhelming messages and evidence and things I've been shown and seen have just, it becomes impossible after a while for me to deny it. But for the average person who's not talking to light beings on a daily basis, I can understand why they're just going to go, oh, well, yeah, that might take 1,000,000 years before that happens. But, we're better off just deciding that we have the power to do it now. And what I keep getting told by these beings is what you decide is possible is what is possible. So I'm trying to live in the most impossible perfection that I can imagine, because at worst case scenario, I'm still going to be happier. And, the best case scenario for somebody who stays in their fear and their anger and their, resentment and their feelings of insecurity, the best thing that happens is that they're going to stay in a crappy place. Even if they're in a normal third dimensional life, as you see, there are people that live on the street that can't function. And then there are people that are happy. So we have this big, gap. And so even in this third dimension, what you think is what you create. But what I'm here to tell you is that that truth has now expanded, hugely. So it's really important to be aware of what your thoughts and what you focus on. If you're filled with a lot of pain and anxiety, that's what teachers are for. And I recommend everybody have a teacher. I have a teacher. And so if you want to work with me, go here to thunderwizard.com and scroll around till you see the apprenticeship option, and you can subscribe as an apprentice and you can work with me one-on-one. And my job will be to reflect back to you the ways that you're stuck and how you can overcome that. And everybody who's worked with me, who's followed my directions consistently and, to the letter, to the best of their ability, you don't have to be perfect, but everybody who's followed my directions, their lives have transformed. And if I'm telling you, focusing on your thoughts and what you think about is important, if that frightens you because you don't feel like you have the ability to control the negative thoughts, this is what a teacher is for. So I'm here for you if you want my help. All right, so Earth will fracture into at least 3 different frequencies. The current 3D narrative will collapse and each soul must choose. I pretty much said that. All right, so I'll read through all of them quickly again. True history of human souls in the universe. You were never created. You are eternal God. You chose to create different dimensions to experience reality. All conscious beings outside of the third dimension are aware of their infinite nature. 3D Earth was created as a laboratory of conscious expansion. Only the strongest and bravest of souls were invited to 3D Earth. 3D Earth was always meant to be a temporary experiment. Because of the risk of souls becoming trapped in 3D, Earth will shift. 3D reality is beginning to fracture. Light beings are awakening us. 3D Earth will fracture into at least 3 different frequencies. And finally, the current 3D narrative will collapse and each soul must choose. And I mean that literally. The 3D narrative includes banks, money, government, fossil fuel cars, electricity, all of that's coming down. And whether or not you experience being in a dystopian nightmare where society has collapsed and you're literally running away from, the alien robots who are chasing after you, trying to kill you with laser beams, or if you end up in the perfect reality where everybody's full of love, nobody has to work, whatever you imagine manifests instantly, everybody's got their flying cars and their crystal powered, if you want that reality, you can have that too. It just depends on the choice that you make. And whatever choice you make, you have to take the actions. If you don't want to do anything, if you want the easiest path, then just do nothing and allow yourself to just respond to all of your animal impulses and your fear and your resentment and your all that. If you want the easiest way out, just do that and you'll end up with all the cockroaches. But if you make the decision to choose and you decide that you want the best, even if you're, wallowing in your filth in the street, homeless, drunk, drug addict, if you decide I want to live in perfect harmony and live in the most beautiful reality, and you choose that, ask for help, you will make it. So that's the great news. Everybody can be exactly where they choose to be. You'll have to be willing to make the choice and then take the actions. If you can't take the actions, ask for the strength, and the strength will be given to you. And then you can take the appropriate actions to shift. Everything that I give you on my channel is practical tools. The 90-day challenge, when you do that, I give you practices that address the physical frequency. You're doing the Qigong and moving, just doing the movements and all that. You switch up the frequency in your physical body. Your psyche and your spirit will follow. Working with the Kundalini works on more of a psychological phase. So you work with the physical, the psychological, and the spiritual. And so all of that is in that. Having a teacher in there really makes that all come together. So I give all this stuff available to you if you want. And of course, I have books out there. The 3 most important books that I'm promoting is Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth, Interdimensional Revolution, and The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. All those can be found at michaelwilliamdenny.com, or you can go look for me on Amazon, Kindle, or Audible. We've got a bunch of other stuff. If you go to courses.thunderwizard.com, you'll see a bunch of other stuff that I make available. And by the way, that's what keeps me, while we still have this money nonsense going on, I do need to pay bills and all of that. So if you really want to support me doing this work, subscribe to the 90-day challenge and or find whatever service that you want. And that will allow me to continue to, sleep and eat and completely focus all of my energy on this work. So that's it. I've done all of my stuff. So if there's anybody on here and you want to ask a question, I'm happy to take a look. Let's see what we got here. Stephanie gives me some compliments. Thank you, Stephanie. She says there's a lot of wisdom in your words. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you to say. Tim Z, honest question. You've mentioned that it's best not to indulge in the noise. Right, left, negative. Okay, so you mean the political noise? You say, I struggle between wanting to prepare for World War III and my practice. How best to balance? I mean, if you prepare for World War III, that's what's going to come looking for you. So if you're preparing for World War III, it means that there's a part of you that wants that. I mean, I understand what you're saying. Maybe it's easier for me. I mean, I've always had this. When I was 17, I mean, we don't do this anymore, but when I was 17, I actually had to register for the Selective Service, which is the draft, if you can believe it. Now, thankfully, there wasn't a war that happened at that age, so I didn't get called up to anything. But I remember thinking that, I knew what I knew back then, which was different. I mean, I was willing to go to war to, protect and serve and all that, but I wasn't willing to kill. So I was trying to figure out how I could be on the battlefield without having to kill anybody, because I just thought of it, killing some other guy in another army. It's not his fault. This is about, politics. But then I later became, when I got into martial arts, ironically, I became a pacifist, meaning I would never cause harm to any other human being, nor would I allow myself to manifest a situation where I had to use force for any reason. And I can take care of myself. When it comes to that. But I made the decision I would never, under any circumstances, manifest that. And it's never happened. I'm 60 years old now. I've never, ever had to get out of a dicey situation. And I've never owned a gun. And the reason is because when you own a gun, it attracts violence. It's just the way violence works. So you're going to prepare for war. War is what you're going to get. That's just how it works. But because of what the light beings, what they've shown me, when they've showed me this ascension event, this solar flash event, it becomes really hard for me to even imagine, that any of that stuff is going to go down. But even if it did, it wouldn't matter. If you think about what's going on in the world right now, there are places in the world, there are people still living on this planet who have never been contacted by any civilized anybody. There's some people on this planet, and I think the I forget, one of the Andaman Islands. There's this one island in the Indian Ocean that hasn't had any contact with any, and they know of the outside world. But if you go onto their their island and like you try and make friends with them, like you put a pig, they'll come out and they'll kill the pig and bury it. And the reason they do that is because they know that outside of their reality is this other reality with a bunch of crazy people doing a bunch of crazy stuff. They're easily the smartest people on the planet in that regard. And they, because they've chosen to keep that, it hasn't, nobody's gone onto their island. They leave them alone. You know, when the first Europeans came to the Americas, specifically, you know, what became the United States, the natives there, the vast majority of them were wiped out by disease long before the first Europeans set foot on that part of the continent of America. And when people were dying of disease, they saw that they were being spiritually attacked, that demons were attacking and killing them. And that was a very true understanding. The illnesses were really symbolic of just the depraved mindset of the Europeans coming over to, you know, and the Europeans that showed up, the first Europeans that showed up to the United States didn't go there. They weren't explorers. They weren't even, you know, looking to just find a new place. They were there. Companies, corporations, giant companies were sending people to go and get resources, gold, timber. It was a business venture. And they went there and they treated the land as an object, and the people were just things that were in the way. That mindset is very demonic. So that the symbolism of the disease going and killing everybody is exactly what was the intent behind the people that were going there. But the question is, you know, what brought that on? You know, when you look at some of the Native American tribes, they were incredibly cruel. They took other Native Americans as slaves. They killed, you know, indiscriminately. There was a lot of warfare. So they already had that in their mind. You know, though not all of them. You know, there were different tribes that had different beliefs. Some were pacifists, some weren't. So they, you know, don't feel so bad because they attracted that. But there are people in the world that have never attracted that. And they're still on the planet. There are still people on the planet walking around with spears and stone axes who don't know anything about the modern world. And my point is that you can create that. You don't have to defend yourself against it. I mean, I'm here in a really beautiful part of the world and I have everything that I want. If I go a little further south, I end up in, you know, stuff I don't like. If I end up going a little bit further north, I'm in stuff I don't like. But where I'm at is absolutely my perfect fantasy of everything that I want. You can have that. And what you focus on is what you're going to create. So you want to know balance? What do you mean balance? There's nothing to balance. You know, you focus on what you want. Think about, you know, when I'm telling you about my perfect world, I'm taking it literally. I can't tell you what's going to happen. I don't even try and figure it out. But when I go in meditation and I go create that perfect world, the beings there tell me that this is going to be your home. You're going to live here. So I just accept that at some point I'm going to shift up and I'm going to be there. Does my mind believe it? No. Does it make any sense to me? No. But it doesn't have to. But again, worst case scenario, I'm still going to be happier. So you don't want to worry about World War III, then stop focusing on it. Really take the risk to choose to believe in your perfect reality. But only you can do that. And what I've come to find out is that everybody has a choice. and everybody will be where they choose to be. So if you don't like living in a world where you're trying to prepare for World War III, I understand why you would, because all of the crazy crap that's going on in the world. If you don't want that, then simply make the decision to imagine and manifest a different world for yourself. And what's the worst that can happen? Worst that can happen is you'll still be happier than you would otherwise. What else? Thank you for your question. Okay, is that it? All right, very good. So for those of you who are rather new to the channel, which I gather there might be a few, it's extremely important that you do the interdimensional meditation. Because in order, part of the reason why it's so easy for me to think in these fantastical terms is because I had my reality completely destroyed a year and a half ago. So if you're new to the channel, I recommend that you go and look in the Aliens playlist and watch the video called How I Became an Extraterrestrial. Because 2 years ago, things were very different. 2 years ago, I was completely living in the third dimension. And so what I'm saying now would have been completely impossible for me. I would have toned it down. I still believed in you manifest your own reality and all that. But to the level that I'm talking about now was completely, I wasn't even able to comprehend that. So one of the things that, if you're willing to do it, if you're willing to have your third dimensional reality destroyed, then it's a lot easier to manifest and think about these higher dimensions. So other people are saying that they're struggling with the same things. As I'm talking now, there's a military, helicopter flying around. It's really easy to get caught up in that. But because I did the CE5 and I chose to make contact with higher dimensional beings, they came and they destroyed the third dimension for me. And it was challenging. I had to die, and I continuously have to die to my third dimensional understanding. So part of what you're struggling with, Tim, is there's obviously still some third dimension that you have an attachment to, which is understandable. You're programmed to be attached to it. This won't be easy for anybody. Doing interdimensional meditation, which I know you do, and asking the light beings. So you have to ask them, because they're not going to force you into it. Say, show me who I really am. Show me the truth about this third dimension. Show me the truth about consciousness. When you ask them to show you the truth, they will. Maybe at first they'll be a little, with me, they came at me full force, but that's who I am. First thing I said is, I told them, I'm willing to die. I want to know the truth more than I want anything else, and I'm willing to die no matter how frightened I am of dying to the third dimension. I'm willing to die to learn the truth. Don't hold back. And they didn't. And it almost messed me up. Physically, there's some things going on because my brain broke a few times. But if you want to not struggle with things like what's going to happen, who's going to get elected, and what's going to happen to government, and what the economy, if you don't want to be messed up about that, there's a real easy way out. Do the interdimensional meditation and ask the light beings to show you who you truly are, show you the truth of reality, show you what you need to know, and be willing to have your mind blown. People talk, if you want to know what it's like to really interact with higher dimensional beings, go and watch videos of people's trip reports on DMT. Because when a higher dimensional being connects with you, one of the first things that happens is the level of DMT in your brain goes through the roof. Because DMT is the gateway to other dimensions. When you're born, you come from another dimension to the third dimension, your brain is filled with DMT. When you die, you're leaving the third dimension, the brain is filled with DMT. DMT is the molecule that allows you to shift dimensions. So when these higher dimensional beings come, your brain's DMT is going to go through the roof. So imagine having a DMT trip, but you're not under the influence of any drug. Imagine seeing and experiencing other dimensions and still being a conscious, awake human. That's trippier than anything. And I'll share with you one of the strangest things that's ever happened. I probably should write it down, but I've had a lot of supernatural experiences in my life because I've been a shaman practitioner for all my life. But there were 3 instances that were completely, totally inexplicable to me. And one of them, when I was 7, I had an out-of-body experience, and I went to that light that I told you about. I know what it looks like. I've been there a few times. One was when I left my body at 7, and I went and I saw that light, and I came back and didn't know what that was about. I had another experience, which I don't really want to get into the details, but basically I had an experience where I saw this experience in the sky, and I was given all this information about who I'm going to be in the next reality, and I had no idea what any of that meant. I was 18 at the time. It happened, and I didn't know what to do with it, so I just parked it in my brain, and for 42 years I went, I wonder what that was about. And then, of course, I had this current experience that I've been having for the past year and a half, where I'm communicating with higher dimensional beings on almost a daily basis. And one early on in this experience in June of 2022, this light being came, extremely powerful light being, and I can't really put into words, but energy and messages were coming to me, and I was, while I'm conscious in my 3-dimensional body, looking out my 3-dimensional eyes, I'm also being pulled into these other dimensional realms, and all of this stuff is being downloaded into me. And then I became aware in that moment that what that being was saying to me, that being was giving me that information in 3 timelines. So it didn't happen, I was 7, and then I had another experience when I was 18, and then I had another experience when I was 59 or 58. That's not how it happened. How it happened is that being gave me information that was split simultaneously into 3 different places in my timeline. And I remember it sequentially, but that's not how it happened. So that'll blow your mind. After that, I was like, so when did that happen? Because I didn't understand what was going on when I was 7. I didn't understand what was going on when I was 18, but I understood it. It was that being was giving me information, and at the same time, I could say he went back into time and changed, gave me an experience at 7 and gave me an experience at 18 so that I would understand what was happening to me at age 58. So then I have this whole Mandela experience of my life. I don't know if my past that I remember is the past that I lived. I don't know that. That's the kind of crazy stuff that happens if you're willing to go outside of the 3rd dimension. And the reason why this is happening to us is because 3rd dimension is coming to an end. And there's a need. Because once this shift hits the rest of the world, which it hasn't hit most people in the world yet, but once it starts hitting the rest of the world and people wake up, and there's going to be huge disclosures, my prediction is, starting this month, perhaps for the next 6 to 18 months, there's going to be disclosures about the deep state, and people, when the average person learns what is going on, and things I can't talk about on YouTube. I mean, just you think the things that happened over the past 3 years were, those are nothing in comparison to what is about to be revealed. And when those things get revealed, the average person, I'm not kidding when I say the narrative is going to collapse. When the narrative collapses, which is what holds people's consciousness together, by the way, the narrative is what gives people firm footing to stand on their 2 feet. When the narrative completely collapses, people are going to need to understand the multidimensional nature of the world that they live in. So people are I'm here to tell you right now, I can speak for all of the light beings. They are all surrounding Earth, however many millions, billions, or trillions of them, just outside of our dimension. And they're literally waiting for every single person to ask to connect with them. And the moment that you do, they are looking for people who they can teach so that you can help the rest of humanity survive this shift. So you're just a normal person going through life. If you want to change that, you want to become a really powerful starseed light being enlightened avatar. If you want that, you can have it. You got to ask for it though. And you got to be prepared to have your understanding of reality completely destroyed. But when you make it through the other side of that, you will have an understanding. Those of us that have been going through this, it's difficult being here. It's difficult because, I can see people are just and they're walking through, and when I go to pay, for food, I have to laugh because it's like, monopoly money. It's meaningless. It's just we're playing a game. We're pretending that I'm paying you for something, and I know that it doesn't mean anything. But the person on the other end is like, it's all about the money. If they don't get their money, they can't make their bills, and so it's hard for me to walk around in this world knowing that, the most people are still, they got their 3D goggles on. But when those 3D goggles get ripped off of them, they're going to need some help. So if you want to be able to help people, do the CE5. I just uploaded a short 30-second video on how to contact higher dimensional beings. And if you do that, it'll be a lot easier for you to let go of your struggles in the third dimension. So anyway, I know that, what's his name? I know that Tim is already doing that, so I'm preaching to the choir, but just keep doing it. And Tim, if you don't have a teacher, get a teacher. You need to be talking. You can't keep these experiences inside of you. If you're like going through this by yourself, it'll drive you crazy. You gotta have people to talk to about it. So find yourself a teacher, or find other people who are doing this. Get involved in the CE5 groups or something, so you can talk to people about the crazy weird stuff that light beings are showing you, because otherwise, you go crazy. Okay, what else? Stephanie S., I can tell you're new to the channel. I've never once made a video about Rh negative blood types. So what I say to people when they're new is spend some time watching the videos so you know what it is I teach. Read my books so you know what it is I teach. I tend not to answer questions I've never taught about, so I don't talk about that. And to be honest, I could care less. There might be something to the blood types, and you've mentioned aliens, so you're new to the channel. So let me just, again, watch my videos, read my books. Aliens are humans. There are no such thing as aliens. If you're using the term aliens and you mean extraterrestrials, extraterrestrials are higher dimensional beings. They have zero need to get involved in our blood types. So the aliens that abduct, there are aliens, they do abduct, they do have breeding programs, but they're humans. They're humans pretending to be extraterrestrials. And they're using technology, they're using downed ET spacecraft, they're using recovered ET bodies and DNA, and they are creating hybrids, and they are creating part technological, part biological beings, and they are pretending to be aliens, and they're doing it so they can experiment on people, so that they can do psychological warfare on the human race, and all of that. So when you write in there Rh negative blood types, alien blood types in humans, it tells me that you, like many people, conflate. It's not your fault. You've been lied to. You've been manipulated. Don't watch Gaia TV. It's all nonsense. Don't go to ufology conferences. It's all nonsense. It's all, most of it is misinformation. A lot of it is fantasy. A lot of it is well-meaning people trying to understand extraterrestrials through their third dimensional understanding. And a lot of it is absolute, complete lies that are being given to people. A lot of people in UFO conferences are deep state plants. They work for military organizations. They're there to frighten you and to tell you that alien abductions happen when they're the ones that are doing the abducting. So watch my videos about that. I've just uploaded a bunch of them, and read my book, Interdimensional Revolution, so you know the difference. To answer your question, I don't think any of that means anything. ETs have zero interest in your blood type. Zero. You say, so what you've experienced is what lies ahead for all of us, only if we ask? Well, it's coming for everybody in some form or another. If you want to get ahead of the game, then I recommend that you, I mean, this is, listen, you guys, when you watch that video, I did not choose to interact with higher dimensional extraterrestrials because I thought it was a fun idea. I didn't believe in aliens. I was afraid of them. I thought they abducted people. I thought they were physical beings. I didn't realize they were higher dimensional. I didn't know anything about higher dimensional beings. I didn't know about any of that. I saw the movie Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which you can watch. If you haven't watched it, go watch it on YouTube. You can watch it for free. Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. I saw that and I went, if that's real, I got to find out if that's true or not. And if that is real, I want to learn from those beings. But I had to do it 3 times before they were able to get through to me. The first time, they were literally flying around and beaming lights on me, and I didn't see them. They were literally speaking to me. I've got recordings of them when I say, "Are you here?" And they say, "Yes." I didn't hear a thing. I went a second time, nothing happened. I had a fantasy, which was actually an interaction with them. And then the third time, a really powerful being showed up and cracked my energy shell. And I was never the same after that. So I kept asking until I got it. So these beings don't abduct. They will never force themselves on you. But if you think you can go deep into their world and not have your reality torn to shreds, I'm here to tell you that's probably not going to be the case. But this world is going away. So everybody's reality is going to get torn to shreds. And whether or not you're on the ass end of that and getting thrown around and trying to hold on to your reality, that's going to be the worst. The people who try and hold on to their identity and their reality, that's not going to be a fun time. You've got to be willing to die to yourself, die to your ego, die to what you think you know. And the end result, everybody that I work with that has worked with higher dimensional beings, every single one of them, their lives have blossomed. They're not even the same people they were. Some of them had some challenges. Some of them had to deal with some trauma and some pain that they needed to let go of. And some of them had difficult times holding on to their sanity because what they thought was real turned out not to be even close to what reality is. So I wish I could take that away from you, but I can't. And one of the reasons why you have to ask them, unlike the fake aliens who show up in the third dimension and walk around, the robots, that people think are little gray aliens. Unlike those third dimensional objects, every time that a light being interacts with you, your third dimensional reality crumbles a little bit. And they would never take away your three-dimensional security blanket without your permission. But the reason why the CE5 protocol is the way that it is because when you follow the CE5 protocol, even if you don't know what you're doing or why you're doing it, you are by definition opening yourself up to an altered reality experience. So that's why you can see them. That's why you can experience them. But if you don't do that, if an ET was just to show up and just say, hey, guess what? I'm a higher dimensional being, it would be an assault on your third dimensional reality. It would be destructive to you. So they will never do this without your permission. You know, and a lot of people, myself included, think that this is an ET thing that's happening in the world, and it's not. When I first started working with them, I was like, why don't you guys just come and shift everybody up and change everything? And they would kind of say that's not how this works. It's the universe that's doing this. The consciousness of the universe has decided to end the third dimension. And the ETs are actually coming here because we're like in a whirlpool and they're trying to help us. But they can't help us if we don't ask. So that's why I think everybody should be doing interdimensional meditation. And you should be consciously knowing that you want to shift your understanding of reality. And if you do that consciously and deliberately, it'll be, not only will it be the easiest transition, it will be blissful. I'm pretty well certain that, you know, where I'm going to end up after all this is going to be phenomenal. I've made a couple videos about what it's been like when I was taken to the fifth dimension vibrationally, and I look forward to getting back to that place. But I'm looking forward to getting back to that place with a bunch of other people who also want to be at that place. As opposed to what did happen, which was I was in it all by myself, surrounded by a bunch of normal humans. Anyway, I'm starting to babble, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Welcome to the new people. Stephanie, you seem to be rather new. Please educate yourself. My books, my videos, really learn what it is that I teach. But of course, it's okay to have questions, and it's okay to know whatever it is that you know. And if I can help, I will do the best that I can to do so. So having said that, again, all of the links are here. Click on them to find out what's available. Courses.thunderwizard.com, thunderwizard.com, 923.thunderwizard.com, books at michaelwilliamdenny.com. Please check all those out. Whenever you support me in any of those ways financially, you keep the channel up and running and you allow me to eat for another day. But take advantage of the free stuff. There's more free stuff, and if you just did the free stuff, there's enough in there to give you everything that you need. Thank you so much for everything. I love you all, and especially if you've done any work to empower yourself, you've empowered me and all other beings in the universe, including Shiva himself bows before you and thanks you for allowing us to evolve. And so until next time, if I don't get beamed up to the Starship Enterprise, and or if the Flash don't come, and or if I don't succeed in shifting my frequency up. If none of those things happen, I will see you all very soon. Please take very good care of yourselves. I love you all.